Hi, I'm Patty with StudioR12 Stencils, and today I've got so much for you to learn. We are going to show you how to embellish with a secondary stencil, how to put words and parts of your stencils on other projects, this beautiful wax background, this grungy texture with layered mediums. There's a lot to learn. Even if you don't want to paint a chicken, you have a lot to learn, so I hope that you enjoy. All right, guys, here we go. I have so much to show you this week. So we are going to start with our chicken. This is our main project, but I wanted to show you, this isn't about chickens. So if you're not about chickens, don't worry, I've got you. So we're gonna we're gonna do this special background with some wax and some distressing. Notice this beautiful shading around the edge. We're gonna get that done. I'm gonna show you how to add chicken wire embellishment around the edges of things. This is a different kind of grunge technique, so let me get started. And I want to start first by showing you that it doesn't have to just be about chickens. So when we go here, well, this is another chicken, but I've done this and I've done it on a tray, so it's not a wooden sign that you do like this. You can do it as a drinks tray or some other useful tray. Don't think of stencils as just on signs. They can go on lots of things. Pillows, oh my God, that'd be a beautiful pillow. But then we took it to a farmhouse level, and we took another round stencil that we have, and we added the same exact embellishment and did the same exact technique, but we did it in this cream and white color with the black. So that's a farmhouse thing. We could have added an arrow in there because this actually fits right there. This is Stencil STCL 5411 if you want to know. And then a cool thing that is neat about our company, StudioR12 Stencils, is that you can get things, this actually comes in 3 sizes. This is the one I used for the big project, and this is the one that I used for the little tray, okay? So, and then what I had to do for the tray, just to give you a hint, we're going to have a YouTube video that is going to be, might be a live, that is gonna be how to do the galvanize. There are actually some tricks to this. You have to have an adhesion medium. We use paint adhesion. You prep it a different way, you do some of that, so rather than get into everything in one video, we're gonna show that separately. But start with your paint adhesion medium. Start looking for it now because the whole last year of 2020 killed all of our paint supplies everywhere. So start looking for it as soon as you find it, get on it. The little one doesn't fit inside this tray. It actually pokes up, so I had to take my scissors and cut around the outside. Never be afraid to cut your stencils up, okay? So there's a lesson right there. I would have never thought of that on my own. So that's something to think of. So welcome to our live. Let us know where you're from. And then I'm gonna tell you what our prizes are. If you're catching this on YouTube, go ahead and head over to our Facebook page and then make sure that you subscribe and like us and do all that stuff, because then we do these every Tuesday and then we do a recast tonight at 9. So we're always doing these every week and they'll be brand new then so you can see the latest stuff. And then if you're catching us on Facebook, head on over to YouTube because we have a whole bunch of other stuff on YouTube, like specials and things like that that you'll want to know about, and ring the bell because if you ring the bell, then you'll get notified. So our prizes are gonna be, we're gonna give away a Relax and Unwind. You're on patio time, and so while we're talking about patio time, like, share, and comment. Let us know what the weather's doing, where you're at. And then the infamous click erasers that erase wet paint but don't erase dry paint. We're gonna give away one of these today at the noon and then tonight at the 9 o'clock. And our grand prize is one of the trays. So super cool. If you want a tray, make sure that you order it because it's an import product and they're hard to get. So get in and get it like right away if you want one, after you know whether you won one, okay? So I'm gonna get started on some techniques for how do you choose your paint. This was a really interesting project. I adore how this project came out. The arrow is super interesting. So I knew I wanted the red, I knew I wanted the black shading. I've done some things like that with those colors before. I didn't know what I wanted on my arrow. So I took a spare piece of wood. I didn't like this tip of this arrow, so we made it a little bit longer. This is a product on the website, both of these, and you can get like a set. There's a set deal for them. And so I did black. I knew I wanted it black. And then I did the two colors. I didn't know if I want yellow accents or the teal. And so I decided I wanted teal. And then I wasn't sure about texture. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do about the texture. So I started out with a galvanized technique, which we'll show you in another video. And that's like probably a YouTube thing, so make sure that you subscribe and do the bell thing. And then I didn't know if I wanted it on natural, black. And so then here's what happens with me, is we've got a little store here in Gallipolis. If you're ever in our town, stop by and see us. And so I passed by this pulley. It goes with this bucket, and it's super cute. I was walking through the store, and this texture grunge just reached out and said, that's exactly what you need. So then I went through and I matched the colors up to it, and that is how I decided on my colors. So these colors don't just like come out of my head, and they're not like born when I see a stencil, I go, oh, I know. They're actually something you have to work at. So do some like cardboard scrap would do really good for this. You don't have to have, blank wood. I just happen to have that laying around. So let's put some grunge on our arrow. So I've got it pre-based with black and gray. And I just streaked it on there kind of randomly. And now we're going to use and I put it away, hang on. We're gonna use a little bit of our modeling paste. It's a Liquitex brand. And I'm gonna put it out. We had some debate a couple weeks ago about whether to use paper plates or palette paper. Here's what's neat about paper plates. When I'm doing something liquidy and wet and watery, or if it's the only thing I have on hand, I'm gonna use a paper plate. They work perfectly good. Any other thing that you have that's flat at your house works good. You could actually just use the silicone mat if you wanted to. Just, draw a line, put a piece of tape down, fill it up, and then wash it off when you're done. So there's tons of things you can use. However, palette paper allows you to manipulate with your knife, and that is very important. So if I'm up on this, I'm going to hit my edge. Okay, so I wanna make sure that I have room to move around and mix my colors. That's a very good reason to do that. You do not have to use anything that we suggest, but these are just the things that I find easier. Okay, and then let us know, what do you use as a palette? I think that's an interesting question. Okay, we're gonna get a mushroomy gray. I have noticed that I use a mushroom gray more than a lot of colors. It's just a nice neutral color, kind of a clay tan color. It goes with your cools and it goes with your warms. Okay, so now I'm going to mix that mushroomy clay in there with the Liquitex paste. That paste is amazing. So we started a few months ago doing, this year I think it was this year, I don't remember. But we started putting Amazon links and our website links in all of our YouTube videos and all of our Facebook videos and that kind of thing, so that you guys can go and find the exact thing that we're using so that you're not stuck if you really want just that thing. They are an affiliate link. That's what Amazon considers, and we have to let you know that that's an affiliate link. They give us a very small % of things. I think I've made a whole $2 so far. So, but it's there for your convenience, so enjoy. Okay, so we got that color mixed, and now we're gonna mix some black in the other pile. Tell us what the weather's doing, where you're from. We are not giving away brushes probably for a while. Off and on throughout this year. I hate to reference times and dates because you're gonna see these videos in the coming years. Like I've got literally videos up on YouTube that are from like 10 years ago. So if I'm talking about this year, you don't know what year it is, but anything that's an import, which our brushes are an import, are really hard to get consistently. Those trays are a really good example. They're an import. The company that we got them from no longer wanted to carry them, so then we can't get them. So that happens a lot. Our brushes are available off and on, but it's always spotty. And we got stuck a couple of times where we didn't have like the largest size. The largest size is the most important size. So make sure that you buy them when they're in stock. So check the website every week and then get them when you can. Okay, so, but if you want to, go ahead and tell people in the chat, go ahead and tell them what you think about the brushes because they are magic for not bleeding under. All right, so I've got flat stuff on my palette knife and I'm just going to run some ridges of color across. I'm not pushing. Let me show you what would happen if I pushed. Well, mixing paint is what would happen if, see how that's all flat like that? If I push, I'm just gonna frost it like a cake. but see how I can move my palette knife on this flat surface? And then I can also pick it up and hold it over here. So it's almost like one of those like Bob Ross, you know, palettes that are like the ubiquitous palette. So it's almost kind of like that, but it's not. And it's disposable sheets, which I like. I don't like throwing things away, but I don't like cleaning the dishes all the time. So wipe that off. And then how many of you have done any palette knifing in your projects? Have you done any of these junky backgrounds? I think they're so cool. We've got a couple of really cool videos on YouTube. This one technique for the Rawlinson family with this personalized and stuff like that, which I forgot to mention, would make such a good wedding gift, housewarming gift, retirement gift, new home, any of that. So like think about that if you're a painter, you've got the perfect outlet to make like the perfect gifts for people. All right, I'm gonna pick up the black. I think I started talking about something over here. Oh, that technique is on our YouTube. There's a 3 textured backgrounds, something like that. There'll be a channel and stuff like that that you can just kind of stumble around and find it. We'll put a link below. That's what we're doing. Anyway, but that, if you want to see how to do that background, that'll be on there. Slightly different than this, but pretty close. Okay, so I'm just layering that texture, and I'm going to do one top level, and I want to just show you. Like you can see that my inspiration is there. Like, isn't that cool? So after I get that sanded and after it dries and all of that stuff, then it's gonna be just like the inspiration. Okay, so now we're gonna let this dry, and it's a little bit of a goopy mess. Let's not put it on the prize. So don't forget our prizes. You're liking, sharing, and commenting. I'll find a spot back here. Okay, so take this away. One thing that I do want to mention, I got myself in a little bit of a sticky wicket. I did not allow myself a place to glue. That was really interesting, and it was a problem, and I had to solve it. You'd think after 30 years of doing this professionally, you think I'd have it, but you know, slow learner. Okay, so what I had to do is, in order to get the glue to bite, if you've ever glued something that has paint on both sides, they won't stick to glue. Glue won't stick to them. So especially if you varnish, sometimes it'll do it with paint, but sometimes not. But definitely if you wax, like wax is a resist, so I definitely was not gonna get that because I had no paint on the back of this, but lots of wax on this one. So what I had to do was take a fresh sanding block. These are on the Amazon links. These are hand savers. I do a lot of sanding and stuff like that. But if you've got the paper and you're real tight with it, then it hurts your fingers. It has got weight to it, and it's just really good. So I had to sand through, and I had to make a place where I could get some bite and some tooth for my glue. And then on the glues, we had a big debate here about which glue to use. And we had 2 options. We had the E6000 and we had the Gorilla Glue, which is a wood glue. And we decided to try the wood glue first, thinking that it would dry faster than the E6000. And the wood glue did great. So definitely a great product, and it did a really good job. And this is almost empty. I'm trying to see if I can see through it. It feels mostly empty. It's definitely less than half. And this thing hasn't stopped up yet and stuff like that. Normally, other ones that I've used, they've gotten junked up, and this one hasn't. And I don't know why, because I don't think we've treated it very nicely. Okay, we're going to do our background. I've got a board ready. If you are doing any kind of texture and doing that kind of thing, you want to keep it going with where you want it to go. If you notice, the grain of my paint, just like the grain of wood is going to go in one direction or the other. If I sand or distress this way and I need it to go straight up and down or straight sideways, there was another one here. This is one that Lena did in a previous. She did her grain going this way. If she'd have done some up and down and some this way, it would make your eye nuts. So you definitely want to watch how you're doing your grain. And there's kind of a funny thing when you're sanding and you're applying your paint, it's way better to stand up And I do like a countertop table, so you can put the mat on a counter in your island, things like that, and then just kind of dig into it. And then this washes. This is a silicone mat, and it washes with, we use Zep and a piece of foam brush, or foam, it's a brush too. I used it as a brush yesterday. A piece of foam kitchen sponge. Washes right up. So one thing that you want to watch is when I'm standing here, you will never see me try to go like this, because you'll see that I'm right against my body, and you got lumps and bumps and all the things. So I will turn my project and I will get my body away, and then when I'm sanding, I'm not hitting anything. So I try to find whatever the natural is for my body. And you'll also find when you're drawing a foam brush that if you're close, you'll tend to arch. So you don't want to do that. You want to definitely give yourself, I literally have 1 foot forward, and I'm giving myself a nice big range to move. So watch that when you're doing it, because these lines are very important depending on what you're painting. Okay, so got my lines. I already have some there, so we're going to continue like that. Let me get this cleaned up. The paste is a big old mess if you leave it laying around, because it stays wet a little bit longer than paint. So let me get this off. The palette paper, nicely enough, is glued at the top and bottom. So if I was mixing this paste and I was lifting like I do, like push, push, push on there to get it all mixed, and this was not attached at the bottom, then it would lift the page and it would flop and flop, and you would be like, ah. So that's why it's like that, but it's harder to get off. Okay. Okay, we'll get that out of the way. And now we are going to wax. So we're going to do a distress. I like to use the Clapham's Soluble Wax. I like the size of the container. I like the softness of the wax. You can use, in this technique, you could use a Vaseline, or you could use another kind of wax. So just letting you know that this one is not needed. There is a project that we did, this project, that we painted, and then we put this after we did the background in that video that's on YouTube. I needed this wax because it was not going to sit, the other wax was going to sit funny. So sometimes you have to have a specific wax. Got boards everywhere. Okay, so I just used my finger. I'm going to look at my project. If you were trying to paint this like what I did, you wanted to get everything exactly how mine was, then you would just look closely at the picture and simulate like about where the stuff is. So I have a big part at the top. Let me get this down here so we can like both look at it together. Okay, so I'm just kind of tracking where these things are. And you don't want to make it look like stripes and lines. I can do some sanding and get the effect. Some is scraped paint. I really, 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 really love the look right here of where the paint has chipped off and it drags and it does all of that. So that is the look I'm after, and you've got to use a wax to get it. Going around my fingertip there. If you have a waxy residue when you're done, make sure you're liking, sharing, and commenting. What techniques have you liked so far? We've kind of spit out quite a few here. And then what would you like to do later? What would you like us to paint later? Oh, I'm doing it. Okay, here's the thing I just told you not to do. Have you noticed, like, I think it's every single live, I say don't do this, and then every single live I like do the thing. Okay, so we're gonna wipe that out of my area where I'm going to be painting, and I'm going to avoid that area. Okay, and I'll do the top and the bottom, and I'll just sand through that middle area. If you have a really busy area of your stencil, this is probably a really good example. If you have a really busy area, like this Gallipolice right here, probably when I painted this, I probably could have sanded over my busy chicken wire right there and done something to like lighten up how much is going on there. Don't put a lot of texture or paste or chipping paint in your busy area of your stencil. The neat thing about stencils is you can look at it and guesstimate where the busy areas are, and so you can avoid those areas. Okay, so we'll get that. I get so busy talking, I forget the rules. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. How many of you are rule breakers? Post a little hands up in the chat if you're a rule breaker. All right, so now we're going to put the color on top, and we're going to use a burgundy red. And I wanted to warm it up a little bit, so I actually added in, I did 1 coat of burgundy red, and then I add in a little bit of a bright yellow. It's a kind of a more golden yellow. So once again, we'll have a little bit of palette knifery. I didn't like the red being too dead red, you know. And then we've got our poly brush. Remember, the poly brushes are magic, so they are super, super dense. So when I'm pushing on it, and I'm pushing quite hard actually, it doesn't all collapse on you. A lot of the brushes, they're not made the same. We have another video that we took one apart and showed you why they don't do that. I'm gonna move my chicken wire. All right, so now I'm getting my arm away from my body, getting paint on both sides of that angle. And then I'm just gonna kind of dry brush paint. I'm gonna sand to get the distressing, so if you got wax in an area, and then clean up your edges if you think that you're making a mess. If you got wax in an area that you wanted to glue in and you realized before you finished the project, unlike me, you can use that Zep cleaner and you can, or a degreaser, and you can clean that wax off and then sand heavily and then you can glue. I mean, I did it, so you guys can do it. And then you'll see that the wax is kind of resisting the paint already. Don't try to cover it heavily. Okay. And then to get clean edges around my piece right here, so I'm going to go over here to do this. I'm in the middle, and now I'm going to sweep off like that. So if I try to, and I'll show you this and make a mess, if I try to do this, notice what happens is I get this great big wad that drips on the other side, and it is not good. So in order to clean up my edge, if I painted all over it, you can take one of these kinds of brushes, dab it in black paint, and then just go all the way around, just dab, 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 and like push off on a paper towel so you don't glom. Dabbing is one thing, glomming is another, so those are our vocabulary words today. So we do that to clean up. Okay, and get my board straight again, get my body crooked here, and so I'm sweeping off the edge. I do a slight lift up. Not trying to get anywhere super fast doing this. I'm gonna do wet and wet to blend those colors. Just trying to get some red down on the board. Okay, now we're gonna get some more red and we'll mix in some yellow. If you were to paint this project for somebody, who would you paint it for? So like I have collected chicken stuff since for the longest time at my house, but I didn't have chickens until like a couple years ago. So now I have chickens, and so now I feel very validated. This is going home to my house. Nobody gets to have that. And it's gonna go out with my chickens. Last year was an interesting year. 2020 was an interesting year for people to start having chickens and gardens. And how many of you garden? I wanna know if we need to have garden signs, like little garden, like I have like 12 kinds of tomatoes. You know, how do I know what my tomatoes are and what kind of sign would you use? You know, would you use them over and over again? I think that's interesting. Every year we say we're gonna make tags for the garden, and every year we miss it. Would they be metal? Would they be wood? Would they be skinny? Would they be tall? Like, what would you guys like? Okay, so I'm making this a kind of an orangey color, and it will die down to more of a burgundy-ish color. I'm using the heck out of the red. This is why we use honey bottles. There's a link down below. And we use paint by the gallons. If you can see how much paint I've poured out just in this little bit of a project here. And I've got like 12 samples and all the things. And we have a team of people that paint. We've got like 7 stations and all these bottles of paints. And so we definitely need the paint by the gallon. It's acrylic paint, cleans up with water. So whatever you have on hand. The wetter your paint, probably the crappier it is. If they thin it really a lot with water, and I'm going a little bit at an angle, let me straighten my act up. I can go right back over that and straighten it up. I like the streaks, so I'm going to leave those, and now I'm going to put my brush in water. These brushes will last and last. This one you can see that I've kind of chewed at the tip. It got hardened on the tip of it. If you don't submerge it in water while you're painting, then it will dry. If it's just floating, it'll dry on the top edge. But mostly, these are ones that have been washed, and they get stained, but they don't get hard. So I'll bet you we get maybe 10, 15, 20 projects out of them before we trash them. So I like to get them really wet in the water and shove them down. Okay, we're gonna get rid of this one. And I am going to plop it over here on the floor. Loud noise, sorry. That's gonna be a big mess if I get it on anything, so. All right, so now this one has got wax on it. One thing that you need to know is that if you put your wax and paint on the day before or 2 weeks before, your paint can harden, and your paint will harden, and it's going to be harder to get your chip and your release. So you might have to work at it more. And then someone a few weeks ago, talked about sanding being your cardio. It's such a true statement. So here we go. We're gonna go straight lines. This is where it really counts, okay? And it should lift right out where our wax is. Okay, that's nice. If there's something you don't like, okay, something that, say you get a phone rings and your arm goes this way and you get it like through the middle, you can totally put another coat of red on, do it again. So no problem. Just like that. There's quite a bit going on that board, so I think that mostly it can be hidden by other stuff. Okay, so like, share, and comment. We're doing giveaways. We've got a click eraser. This is the one that does the ghost lines. We've got the rewind and relax and unwind. You're on patio time. And then we've got the big metal tray as our prizes. Okay, so get this to a level that I think is good. And then a lot of times I like to distress my edge. See how much goobers is getting on this table right here? It'll just kind of sit on top of this and just float along, but it's super easy to clean. It's much nicer than having this bare wood that we had before, because the bare wood was getting dirty and grungy and I was gonna have to sand and wax and do all the things. So I like this better. Now we're going to, let's see, what do I wanna do first? We're gonna stencil. And we're gonna stencil with the stencil I can't find. All right, if you're a beginner and you don't know how to stencil, then you're at the right place. So you don't have to have bleeding under your stencils, and it's not the stencil, usually it's how you're loading your brush and how much paint you have. It's super easy to control, so I'm gonna show you how to do that. I'm gonna use a dome stencil brush, okay? They do get stained. We use them, plunk them in water, and then wash them on a ginger grater later. You need your brush to be dry. You need your paint to be dry, meaning you don't have any water added. So that's like the main things. And then how much you load and how much you wipe off is gonna be the next part of control that you get to have. So I'm gonna get a flat paper towel. This stencil is not a round stencil, and my project is round. So I want my lines straight up and down. That can be a little bit more difficult on a project that's round. I'm going to center, it's an 18-inch round with an 18-inch basically stencil. It's got a teeny bit of a size difference, not sure why. Let's make that line of my bridge go straight, and then I'm going to take 2 pieces of tape, and this is it's a stretchy kind of tape. This is not a painter's tape or frog tape. It's a painter low-tack tape, but it's not frog, but it has some give to it. And we use it sometimes to mark things that are like squidgy. Okay, so we're gonna get here and just put it on either side. Watch this, if I do it on one side only, let me peel that back up. Really good reason. Almost everything I do, some things I do just because I'm goofy, but a lot of the things that I do have very good reasons. I've taught for years and years and years, so I've helped people learn how to paint for 20, 30 years. So if I only tape in one place, look at how much play I have. Okay, now let me get that back centered. Okay, and then we come around the side. And now watch how much play we have. Absolutely none. Okay, I can lift and peek. If you're a peeker, let us know. Put it in the chat. If you're not a peeker, let us know too. That's kind of fun. All right, and then we're going to do black on the borders. This is just a little bit of a special treat. I'm going to start with the letters. This is the beginning section, and then we'll move on to something that's a little bit more complex. I am always I don't quite like white. It's so stark, especially with a really warm palette. It really stands out. So I'm going to do the mix of a little bit of white and a little bit of a cream. Cream is also a little bit dirty looking to me, so I don't want it just all or nothing. That's why I like mixing my paints. And I want my offset spatula. You can use this spatula for mixing everything, but there's a reason for the other. Let me find one of you guys. I've got 25 of these and none of my offsets. They're probably all over by the sink. So we will do this. So what you will do, the offset doesn't let your fingers get into the paint because it has a little like lift. So I'm gonna just get my hand out on the side of my palette paper. Also a reason for paper plates not working. If you're trying to mix paints at all, it's really hard to do. So I'll just get that basically mixed. Doesn't have to be perfect. You never want to mix with these dome brushes because the dome brushes are not to be wet. So if I was to mix that paint with my brush, you could mix with the back end of your brush. So I could go right there and use it like a flat spatula like I just did, and then peel that all off, and then use my paper towel and clean it off. Whoop. Ah, good. Okay, I wanted to show you this. When you soak your brush handles in a deep pile of water like we do all the time, like literally we have thousands of these brushes. This does not happen very often, but it did happen to a customer, so I don't know if she's using deep water too like we do. When this happens, two things you can do. Number one, you contact us, you send it back, it's absolutely fine, no worries. Like we'll make it right. But just put a little hot glue right in there and then just stuff that right back on there. So real easy to do, and actually if you just give it a little twist, it usually stays. So I'm glad that happened. That's so perfect. Okay, so we're gonna take our brush, it's dry. We're gonna dip into our paint and just give it a teeny little swirl. We've got just a little bit of paint on there. And then I'm gonna come right on here and I'm gonna do like 10 swirls. And I'm gonna, if I feel my paint, I should just barely, might do it just a little bit more, barely make a mark, okay? And then we're gonna go into our letters. Brush is gonna be straight up and down. It's a dry brush. You can't change colors and wash it out and then reuse your brush until your brush dries. Very important. Now my pressure is gonna be super soft. You can stipple. This is what everybody thinks of when they do the stenciling, but it's super splotchy. It's a good control thing. It's a good base coat thing, but it's not the best technique. So what we've learned is to swirl. So we're gonna very soft pressure. Do a little swirl, just a barely swirl, and by the time I get all the way over here and all the way down here, I can start right back over because my paint's not thick. The other thing that stenciling, if you do your stencil like that and you get really thick layers of paint, it looks like you stenciled it. And then you have big ridges and it's just, yeah, then it just doesn't look so good. So I think the swirling is nicer. If you're afraid to swirl, go ahead and get you an Amazon box or some piece of brown paper or something or another and just practice. And practice on something you can throw away and not look at ever again. Okay, so we'll just get swirl. And then as I move and travel, so my pressure is being controlled, I can push a little bit heavier and a little bit heavier. I wouldn't want to go scoop up some more paint right away. I want to just use what I've got in my brush. Get all the way down there. Now I'll reload, come back here. So this is 101. This is Stenciling 101. Okay. You can reuse these stencils over and over again. I'm going to go down here. Notice how fast this goes. when I shut up and start painting. These projects go way faster. You could probably paint like 3 of these in the time that it takes me to explain everything I'm doing. So if you think it takes an hour to get something done, it's way faster. Dry time can give you a longer time. So now I've gone all the way through with all of my whites. I'm avoiding this area altogether. This is kind of a cool technique. I don't think everybody thinks of. Just because this is on my stencil does not mean that I have to use it. Let's finish the white and then I want to show you an example. So we'll go up here, reload my brush, really light pressure, and then I want to show you how to use that stick eraser. Okay, so say I'm swirling and then look what I just did. I just did what I call a ghost. Maybe I'm really close to something else and I didn't mask it with some tape. So let me finish and then I'll pretend like I'm peeking. Are you not like in love with stenciling? So like it goes so fast. It's amazing. I love to stencil, and that's why your brush will come apart on you every now and again if you leave it in there. Do know that we will replace it. Do know that, yep, it's all the way in there. Do know that it's no problem at all. And you can keep using it for your project and then let us know, we'll replace it. Okay, so these click erasers, they're made out of like a PVC vinyl. And if you've got dry paint, which I have dry paint here, if I sand on that, it will not erase at all. If you have fresh paint and you've made a mistake, so, oh no, this is all a color. First of all, black will cover that, so it's not a big deal. But if it's in an area that it is a big deal, like the edge of something, dip in water. You can also dip in spit, whatever. And you just go on the paint where it was, and you just clean it off. Magic. Okay, so when that dries, it'll be the same color. Neat. I love this trick. And it erases regular pencil lines and stuff like that too. One thing, I want to show you one more thing. Let's get that triple threat guy out. We have the single soapstone clickable that's in white only, and I think we have gray and we have white. This one's a triple, and so it'll has a gray lead, it has a stylus if you're a tracer, and it has a white. And this is a soapstone, I think it's soapstone. If I'm wrong about that, it's a white thing that erases. We'll just call it that. If I want to mark my area where my wax-free zone's going to be, I can just draw right on there. That will mark my spot, and then I am going to spit. It erases with water, eraser, or saliva. So it's super awesome because it doesn't take any, and it also has an eraser on the back end, so it has a PVC eraser on the back, and they're refillable. They're really amazing. They came from the sewing industry. I don't even know what their real name is. We call it a ghostwriter. Okay, so now we are going to show you what I was talking about. So I've got some other chicken things over here, and we've done some things in different colors. Let me show you. Okay, so we have farm fresh eggs. This is so people have been asking us what our best sellers are. Anything with a truck on it is absolutely a bestseller. Anything with this chicken on it is absolutely a bestseller. I mean, we're talking like thousands and thousands of them. So this project, I've done it in red, I've done it in these other colors. Super cool to do it just like it is. Light colors, dark colors, you can do farmhouse colors. Here it is in black. This is STCL1107. Okay, so there it is with some and turquoise antiquing. I still don't know if it's teal or turquoise. Distressing, that kind of thing. I love that palette. I tend to be a darker colors girl. This is the same stencil, STCL1107. And what we've done is we've only used the center section. So how cool is that? So you can use parts of your stencil. You're not stuck using every bit of it. I love that. And then we have this little guy with the chicken parts on it, and he's STCL2589. Just want to show you some other things that we have with things on them. Okay, we are going to do the black line. I want to show you the black line because the black line is a tricky thing. So this is like more advanced. So we'll take our palette, move our paints. Having everything just like right handy, right at hand is I need me a shelf back here. Okay, so we're gonna take our, I had a palette, I had a paper towel, I'll just use this one anyway. So I'm gonna dip my dry brush into my dry paint and on my dry paper towel, do my 10 swirls and maybe 2 more, okay, just to be sure. What happens with these bigger places, I call these like arm traps, okay? This is a problem, but it's like a super like needed problem. So we have to strike a balance. How many is too many bridges and how many is just enough bridges? How many is gonna make your life like a pita factor? So in something that's gonna have any kind of movement and lift, and because this is off of the edge, it's gonna tend to lift up just a little bit when it droops over. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to brace it on the one hand, and then I'm going to stipple this. The stippling adds that pressure straight up and down. Swirling will kick that thing up every time, and you're gonna struggle. So that is how you avoid that. You can take your palette knife if you don't wanna get your fingers, you've got a nice manicure. You can take your palette knife and hold it down, the end of a brush, pencil eraser, and then you'll stipple it. Okay. And then you can just move it along. And then if you're holding it and you want to do a couple swirls, you could do that. But you want to be super careful about catching your edges and doing that. Your other black lines are treated the same way. Looking to see what else we want to do. I'm going to go ahead and give this a little scumble over here so it marks it. Notice I'm swirling in a straight line. So I'm holding it and swirling in a straight line with the grain of my stencil. So that's also a way that you could swirl. I would not recommend it. I would do the stippling on a big area like that that's gonna flop. I'm gonna show you the chicken wire, and that's why I wanna get this done so that I can show you where that's gonna go. Okay, so we're gonna peel our paint. Peel our paint, peel our tape. Okay. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. I think that you're gonna love these prizes. And then tell everybody what you think about these brushes. They don't fall apart all the time, I really truly swear. It's actually very rare. There was another one, there's a green-handled one that is a little bit cheaper, and it tends to shed a little bit more and the heads fall off a little bit more. And there was a dark green one we used forever ago. They fell apart all the time. These are really good. Okay, so chicken wire, we got chicken wire everywhere. Okay, really good example. When I did the chicken wire on the tray, in order to get this up against this, I had to cut it in a circle. If I was to do that again, I would more than likely just get my big 18-inch one, and what I did is I took a Sharpie and I traced the outside line on my stencil. You probably have to cut a little to the inside, and then that would fit right inside there, and then you could use the whole center part for your other projects. We have a couple ways to do this. We have littler stencils. I think we have 6x6, and I think we have littler size details. We have bigger size details in bigger sheets, and then this one, I actually had this made for this project. It's just a repeat all over. These scale, and this line connects with this side, and the top and the bottom connect to each other. But if you use a centerpiece, it's harder to connect the right pieces together. So if you're a perfectionist, you're gonna want something that's already scaled for you, okay? So, get that. Like, share, and comment. Let us know what you're liking about this. And if you paint chickens, do you do any of this chicken stuff? If you paint to sell, like, what's selling for you guys? All right, so I'm gonna have to shove this over to the edge. It doesn't quite meet up, but sizes of lasers and things like that, I have to do that. So I'm gonna I want it basically straight. Tape, it's here, but it doesn't reach. New tape. So now I'll do the same thing that I did before with 2 pieces of tape, and I'll go on the top and on the bottom. Any exposed edge, and if you wanted to tape through, say you were taping on this project right here, what you could do is you could tape through the lettering if you don't have an edge to get, like maybe your surface is like too small, you can tape through lettering and stuff like that through the details. Okay, so now we're going to grab a brush, and we are going to do the same, the black. This is magic. You can use, we have glass, stone, chicken wire, mosaic patterns, tile patterns, egg patterns for Easter, heart patterns for Valentine's Day. Make cards, do all the things like this. We have all these patterns for like every season. There's hundreds of them, and they come in a ton of sizes, and coming soon it'll be for walls and stuff like that as well. So I'm going to get into the glasses, and then we're just going to swirl. Hit and miss, doesn't matter. Get you a little peeky poo here. So you can just add that little tiny bit of, chicken wire texture, and I think I'm doing it in the wrong color. I am. Into the water. It's gray. It's actually gray and turquoise or teal, whichever it's called. I know what makes one the other, but I don't know kind of where the line is in, like, I know if I was mixing it, which direction I'd be going, but like, whether you're gonna call it turquoise or teal, I go both ways that way, so I don't really care. Okay, so we're gonna get our paper towel. We're gonna go in gray. So now I've done a big oopsie. So what I could do is I could use my click eraser. I can go into my water, and whoops, hey, I clicked it down. Trying a little too hard, too fast. And I can erase that. Okay, once it gets dry, you have to redip. If you have a soda pop or coffee breath, the spit works really nicely. Okay, so that, oops, hey, I smeared gray. Okay, so that took that off, but I think paint is a great eraser, so you can just erase with your paint. So I'm gonna go in my gray, haven't moved, just go ahead and swirl. I wanna keep it out of my black line. Okay. And now to get the details, so there's my, and so that didn't cover yet. So what do? I'm gonna go right back to that area, and let me see if I can cover that up. There we go. Okay, so paint is a good eraser. If your project ever just stinks, if it just absolutely, you think that there's no way you're ever gonna get to the pretty finished thing that you want, don't be afraid. Number one, know that you can paint it until it's pretty. Some of these things get painted over and over and over again, and like, don't be afraid to just keep going with it. Like I will, oh, I didn't show you the antiquing around the edge. I will start with maybe that antiquing, and then I'm like, I want something a little bit more. I don't love it. This arrow was like that. I had to do like 4 things before I found the perfect thing. So don't be afraid to keep going. Test it, but if it stinks and you don't like it, paint over it. Just paint right back over it. It's no problem at all. Okay, so that's what that would look like without any distressing on the behind it. I want to show you what the difference is. So by putting black behind the gray, it really pops, and then by just having the gray on the red, it doesn't pop as well. Okay, so that's a reason to do the antiquing. Now I'm going to show you how to accent with the teal, and then I'll show you the antiquing out of sequence. So get some teal, turquoise, dirty brush that. So that's how you can do things. If you're going to be working a sequence, you can go in your gray and then into your turquoise or teal or whatever. You could go gray to black, black to gray. So you can do that and keep, the same brush. So now with that little bit of teal, I'm going to go a little bit here and there. I'm not going to do it everywhere. Just adds the prettiest little dance of turquoise on there. It's just a neat thing to do. And you could actually put some distressing and antiquing with the turquoise too. It would look great. All right, so I'm going to take the stencil off. Brush always goes in the water. If you don't put your brush in the water, you will have more problems than the head of your brush falling off, and that will be that your brush will dry out and it will not be easily cleanable. So you do want to make sure that you are getting that brush wet and in the water. If you don't want anything to ever happen to your brushes, you can just take them to the sink when you're done using them and clean them out. So that's a second option. I'm the lazy painter. I sometimes will have the same bucket of brushes for maybe 2 days or more. Don't forget we have our StudioR12 tumblers. I've got a hot mix of tea in here right now that is just delicious. And it stays hot like almost until like about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And it's lovely to have that like warmth. Okay, to do the antiquing, instead of doing this brush, which we normally do, we do this kind of like pull it down, pull it down, pull it down, and then you end up with the streaks on it. Similar to the teal right here. So it really shows like lines. What we're gonna do instead is we're gonna use this lovely stencil brush. Same technique as stenciling. And we're going to start where we want the shading the darkest, at the edge. Okay, and then we're going to just start kind of fading it out and just draw it back and forth. Draw it in. Watch for any banding. You want to fade those out. Okay, so I'm going to show you a trick because I know, so like I said, I've taught like literally all over the country. A lot of you guys that took my classes way back in the day, say hi. Okay, I know that some of you have been already. So I've got this and I banded it. You know, I don't like it. What am I going to do? So what you can do is take a fresh paper towel, squeeze that out while it's fresh, and you can simply go on there and erase it. Okay, so if you do that, you're not stuck, and you can see that all came off. And then I'll dry it off. I would blow dry that and move on to another area, okay, so that way you give it a chance to dry. Your paint will, I've covered my trash can. Your paint will cover, your paint will be wet and it won't stick the same way, so it'll act like a wash if you do that. So give it a hot second, move to a new area, okay? So now I've showed you how to do the lettering for beginners. I've showed you how to do chicken wire and embellish it. I've showed you how to do it on a bunch of different techniques. We need the sanding. I think we are about there. The fresh eggs, I don't know if I'm dry. Where'd my arrow go? Ah, it's underneath these things. Okay, you know what? It's almost dry. Let me hit the blow dryer. I'm gonna show you on this instead. It's not fun to watch people blow dry on a video, so I don't think I'll do that to you today. What I did, so this is where I started, and maybe I can show you on this. I think the black is still a little bit thicker. I'll show you here. Okay, so I'm gonna wet my brush. I'm calling the polyfoam brush a brush. It's kind of a brush. Fingers are brushes, paper towels are brushes. So then what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to streak more water. Blot, blot, blot. Just wanna tint that down just a titchy titch. I'm glad that's behaving. So what I've done is I've given it a coat of makeup. Okay, so that is, you want to have your makeup on so all of your little blemishes don't show. And then you let that dry, and then you're just going to do this the same way as the other. I did do the drop shadow with a liner brush, and this liner brush is the best. It is a Deco Art brush. And let me show you what that would look like. And I want to get onto, let me show you on this organic. It's not done on this project, but I just want to show you on lettering that I've already done. It's not interesting also to see the same technique over and over again, so I try not to bore you. I'm going to go into some water, and then I'm going to go into the black paint, which is already wet, just because it would be silly to do that in the white. I twist, okay, ooh, this is when a paper plate would be great. Okay, because then now my paint is wet and it's rolling off. Okay, so I'm gonna work my brush into the paint. And I think I showed this before. in another video. Let me get the back side of a piece of palette paper. Ooh, back side of a paper plate, that'll work. Okay. So, I'm gonna twist my brush just a little bit just to get some of that water off. You've gotta have your brush head, your handle straight up, and then if you keep just your tip, it is like holding a soda straw with the thing on, and you know how you can just dribble it into like a baby's mouth or something like that. If you keep just the tip going, then you can go and 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 go. Okay, and on, right? If you lay your brush down, then what happens, I'm gonna go around this edge right here. You run out of paint right here. So see how many more miles I went than this, and see how fat my line is? So the trick to a liner brush, and they're probably one of the hardest brushes to use, anchor your hand. I anchor on my wrist bone. Some people have anchored on their pinky. My pinky wobbles for me, so I don't do as well with that. I anchor here, and then I don't try to get all the way from California to New York, okay? I try, so I'll show you on the lettering in just a second. I try to make shorter movements instead of long. I try not to, like if I'm trying to make the whole circle, some things I ran my finger through that, this one flipped around, work in little pieces instead. So now let me show you on the letter. So I'm gonna anchor my hand, and then I'm just gonna do this side, and then I'm gonna come over here and do this side. I'll reload as I need to. I've painted so many projects for so many years that I can actually like feel the weight of the brush be different. If you're doing your drop shadow like that, you're gonna do everything on the same sides. So if you're doing all left sides, I have to think about that, or all right sides, do all right or all left. Don't mix them. So everything will be on the left side of the letter. And then if you want to do underneath, so say I'm doing the left side, I could do underneath and then go here. Okay, so everything's good. That's actually right side. Oh, see, spit. Fingers are great erasers too. Pull that off. Okay, so that's how you're going to do that. Just in little lines. I'm not doing anything super fancy. These lines are not even very good, but they don't need to be. You just have to kind of be in the region. If you want to do the drop shadow with your stencil, we've shown that in like a ton of videos. So just check out one of our earlier videos and you'll see how to do that. You just move your stencil down and over when you're getting ready to do that. So that's the easy way if you don't want to learn to use a liner brush. You have to wash your liner brushes out. Did you see me just swirling that kind of against the water? And then I pinch out, and then I would go wash this with a little bit of soap. Never rub them back and forth. These will last you for 20 years as long as you treat them like a friend, okay? And then you always store them straight up and down. All right, guys, like, share, and comment. You could sand this, you could distress it, glue your board on. I think I've covered everything. I hope that you've had so much fun, and make sure to let us know what you like, and then share pictures of things that you'd love to see what you're doing. I hope you have a great day.